Hi. So today our topic is going to be immune recognition and evasion. And before I start with this, I would highly recommend that you review the MHC lecture because a lot of the concepts are going to tie in. Anyways, let's talk about our normal cells first. So our normal cells, right? So let's say this is one of our normal cells and this is our CD8 positive cytotoxic T cell, right? I'm just going to call it CD8 T cell, right? So what happens is that in our normal cells, all nucleated cells express MHC1, right? I've told you this before, MHC1. And along with MHC1, they also present their own self-peptides on this MHC1. So this is a self-peptide, or you can say a self-antigen. So what happens is they present it to the CD8 T cell, and the CD8 T cell recognizes it as our own cell, right? So, like, it just does not attack it. That's what I'm trying to say. It does not attack this T cell. So you can think of it like this normal cell going up to the CD8 T cell and saying, hey, listen, wait, I am one of you guys, right? You can see I just have my ID card with me, right? That's just going to be her self peptide. And the CD8 positive T cell, he just looks at it and goes, yeah, man, you're cool. So this is kind of what happens normally in cells, right? Now, what if you have a viral infection? So if you have a viral infection, right, where a virus infects one of your cells, let's say this is one of your cells and this is a virus that has infected it. Now, if you remember from my MHC lecture, I explained this whole process of how how these viral proteins are processed and how they are expressed on the MHC1, right? So what happens is that the viral proteins are now expressed or displayed on the MHC1. Now, let's say that this is one of the viral proteins, right? Now what happens is that they present this to a CD8 T cell, and what they say is that, listen, hey man, I am infected by this virus and you need to put me down. And the CD8 positive T cell recognizes it as a foreign antigen, right? So what it does is that it says, okay, so hold on, and it releases what is known as perforin and granzymes. And I've talked about this before. So what perforin does is that it creates these pores in the cell membrane, right? It creates these pores, it like punches out these holes, and granzymes will enter through these pores into the cell and activate apoptosis, which is basically suicide of the cell, right? To basically kill it off, to make sure that the virus does not make more copies of itself. So this is how our body acts against viral infected cells. The same goes for the tumor cells, but the only difference is that in tumor cells, instead of this viral proteins, you get these mutated proteins that are also known as neoantigens. So the whole process is same, even the killing process is same, but the only difference is that what is being presented. So in the case of a tumor or a cancer, it will be mutated proteins which are known as neoantigens, right? These are abnormal proteins that are produced. So in normal cells, like I said, all nucleated cells express MHC1 with the self-peptides, and the CD8 positive T cells recognize it but ignore self-antigens, right? Because they are our own cells which are perfectly normal. While the virally infected cells, the viral proteins are processed and displayed on our MHC1, the CD8 positive T cell recognize them as infected cells and they kill them off, again via granzymes and perforin. And next, the tumor cells, they present mutated proteins which are known as neoantigens on MHC1, and the CD8 positive T cell recognize it and destroy the tumor cells. And I hope you can connect one concept with this. This is cell-mediated immunity. So do you see how we come back full circle with this? Is that virally infected cells and tumor cells, these are intracellular abnormalities, right? And they are presented on MHC1, And they are presented to which cell? CD8 positive T cell. So you see all of it is coming back full circle. Now, unfortunately, what happens is that some viruses and tumors, they have a way to bypass this system, unfortunately, right? So how do they do it? So you do recognize that MHC1 in this whole process, in the cell-mediated immunity, has a very huge role. So what do the virally infected cells or the tumor cells do is that they down-regulate the expression of MHC1. And it kind of makes sense, because if you don't have any MHC1, right? If you don't have any MHC1, you are not able to present those viral proteins or those neoantigens and stuff like that, right? So what can happen is that a CD8 positive T cell, the CD8 positive T cell will not be able to recognize that cell. It will not be able to detect it. So that is why the CD8 positive T cell does not attack these kind of cells that have a decreased MHC1 expression. And this can happen with some viruses such as HIV, CMV, just to name a few, and with a lot of cancers. So this is how they evade this cell-mediated immunity, right? But here's a plot twist. Our body has also adapted to this system. So what do? Is that there is another set of cells that is known as NK cells, natural killer cells. Now, what do the natural killer cells do? Is that they are going around looking for cells that have decreased or absent MHC1, right? Just like in this case where virally infected cells or tumor cells have decreased MHC1. So they are going around looking for those cells. What happens is that those cells that do not have MHC1, they cannot express an inhibitory signal, right? Normally what happens is that if you have your MHC1, they express this inhibitory signal to the NK cells. I'm just going to name them NK, to these NK cells. And because they send these inhibitory signals with the presence of MHC1, the NK cells do not attack these normal cells. But in the case of less or absent MHC1, you are not able to express this inhibitory signal. So what happens is that your NK cell becomes activated. And when it becomes activated, it will attack this cell. Why? Because it does not have MHC1. So that is how your body has come up with this like last resort kind of thing. And I think it's very amazing. So with that in mind, let's just go through the points. So how do virally infected cells or tumor cells evade our immune system? By down-regulating MHC1. Some viruses such as HIV or CMV and tumor cells, they down-regulate MHC1 expression. This prevents the CD8 T cell recognition and it escapes our adaptive immunity. So our body has come up with a system with NK cells, natural killer cells. They recognize this decreased or absent MHC1 expression on these cells, and without that MHC1 inhibitory signals, the NK cells become activated. And they kill the target cells via perforin and granzymes, just like I discussed previously.